Good evening and welcome to All for Women's Football. We are back again. It was the FA Cup quarter-finals this weekend, just in case you missed it. 4 teams have made it through to the semi-finals. One of them's Manchester City. They've just got rid of their manager today. What's going on? Find out after this. Such a jaunty little tune. I can't help but have a little boogie to it every time it's on. We're back. Hello, welcome. Lovely to see you all. Let's just have a quick hello to everyone. B, not the greatest of weekends for you, I know, but are you okay? Is everything all right?
Yeah, I'm all good, thank you.
Excellent. That is good news. Freya, not the greatest of weekends for you. Are you all right?
I'll get there. I promise. Yeah, I'll be all right.
Excellent. And Rob, just business as usual for you in terms of weekend, I'm assuming. But how are you?
Yeah, all very, very good, thank you. And how yourself?
Mate, I'm loving life. I had a lovely weekend. It's been really, really good. And I've been locked to my laptop pretty much since I got in from work, really. So there we go. Yes, double duty indeed, Michael. That's where I am today. What can I say? I love it. We're talking football, and what better way to relax could there be than that? Speaking of relaxing, Gareth Taylor's going to get the chance to do a fair bit of that as he has been unceremoniously booted out of the door of Manchester City. I think this is, it's not, if you said on a normal day that they've sacked their manager, you'd probably sit there and go, well, it's been coming. But Rob, I'm going to get you to jump in on this one first as the resident journalist. Why now? It seems really strange to go into an FA Cup quarter-final, win the game against Aston Villa 2-0, and once you've done that, sack them, especially when you consider that their next 4 games are all against Chelsea in what you could literally describe as 4 games that will effectively define Manchester City's season. They could be out of lose the League Cup final, could be out of the Champions League, and could be out of the WSL top 3 race, all by the end of March, and all at the hands of Chelsea. What on earth's happened, Rob?
I'll sort of be honest. I think this decision was probably taken before that. I think it was probably taken after that West Ham game midweek, and it's been a case of almost, the writing was kind of on the wall after that West Ham result. I'd go back even further, and I'd say I think the writing's been on the wall for a little while. Taylor, as we know, has been unpopular with a number of players at the club. Chloe Kelly being chiefly one of them, but he's had run-ins as well before with Ellie Roebuck. Kira Walsh's reason she didn't consider returning to Manchester City was because Gareth Taylor exists. Caroline Weir left the club because of Gareth Taylor. Off my head, Georgia Stanway didn't get on with Gareth Taylor. Pretty much a lot of the players that have been at the club, Taylor has been described by a few players as like Marmite. He's either someone you really, really get on with well and you sort of really, really buy into, or you just completely cannot stand him. And unfortunately, it does sound like, the sort of balance of power has shifted a little bit. I think there's a real concern from a Champions League point of view. I do think that they, maybe have one eye on the Champions League next year. I do wonder if it's because certain players I don't think will stay without Europe. I don't think that, Bunny Shaw, for instance, will stay for another season without Europe. I think she's done a year before of them without Europe, but I don't necessarily think she will stay this summer if there are other offers on the table. I think the likes of Lauren Hemp and players like that will consider their future. Obviously, I think Hemp signed a new deal, but inevitably, if there's a year where they're not in Europe, you're sort of looking at it and, the likes of Barcelona, Lyon are going to look at that and think there's a chance to, drag players away. I think we all know Leigh Alexandre is going to, go sort of in the summer. I think that's, pretty much already there. But I think it's kind of they're desperately trying to avoid that because I also imagine, Viviana Miedemar, for instance, it's going to look incredibly, not bad from her point of view, but it's going to look like an incredibly short-sighted decision if she goes to Manchester City, having left Arsenal because she says she wants to win trophies and wants to succeed and then ends up out of Europe altogether.
I mean, that would indeed be quite a thing, wouldn't it? I mean, there's a lot being said. Emily saying strange in the timing of us sacking Matt Beard. I mean, it seemed a bit weird, but I don't believe that was just fully Liverpool's decision, if I'm brutally honest on that one. So that one I didn't quite feel was quite as strange. But Freya, as we look over here, the timing from City, Liverpool and Palace needs to be investigated. There's been a few changes. I don't know if I would quite go quite in as deep as that one, as it needs to be investigated. Any club has at any time to end the employment of their manager, but it's really odd timing. Like, why would you not pull that trigger before this FA Cup weekend? I mean, Shane asking, could it be that Cushion hadn't agreed to take over, so they didn't pull the trigger, so they still had stability, thinking that actually they might have gone out of the FA Cup had Gareth not been there and there'd been a little bit of uncertainty going on? I mean, what possible reason can there be? Can you think of any? Because I'm really struggling here.
No, it's bizarre that we've had so many sackings in such a short period of time. And you just think, like, when there were clearly issues with Villa and Robert DePau, they got rid before Christmas. So there was a Christmas break, there was the rest of the transfer window in January. Players had time to adjust before they got into that next lot of games. Yes, bringing a different manager in, that's a whole different story. But when you've got managers, especially who have, been there a while, it's going to take so much time for the team to resettle. And yes, they're professionals. Yes, they're going to go for it. But surely the time and now, like you said, before this run against Chelsea and before it doesn't make any sense, because what impact is that going to have on the players and ultimately their performance? And then what happens if it goes horribly wrong and they lose all of the games against Chelsea? Who they're going to put the blame on then, because Taylor will be gone. So it's just this window, this 2-week period in particular has been very bizarre, because you'd think, do it in January, wait till the end of the season. There's no point disrupting the status quo now, in my opinion.
I mean, I agree. I genuinely, I'm really confused. But by the same token, they brought in Nick Cushion. Now, Nick Cushion has obviously been a coach at Manchester City before, and he was also reportedly on the list for replacing Jonas Eidevall when he left. When he was shown the same door that that Gareth's just been shown. But it does, doesn't it? Just feel incredibly weird. Can you offer any insight as to why you think they've decided to get rid of him, having just beaten Aston Villa 2-0? I mean, you would think a game against Chelsea, like, these almost feel like 4-3 hits for pretty much any team at the moment, but they don't seem willing to take that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The timing feels so strange. I don't understand it, and I don't know. Guessing there's probably something going on behind the scenes that we're not aware of. Something with the players, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, it does feel a bit strange. And if you're a player in that situation, it's quite a hard point in the season for a new manager or coach or whatever to come in and completely rejig the whole formation, tactics, everything. It's quite a difficult point for that to happen. Like Freya was saying, this decision being made in January or before the Christmas break would have made much more sense.
I think that's the thing. It doesn't really make sense. And Tony saying here, Eidevall wasn't sacked. Eidevall claims he left. Well, I claim I'm not bald sometimes. Really make it so, though, does it? So, I mean, we can all claim things, can't we? But there we go. So, just saying. So, yeah, it is really strange. And I've got to ask, looking forward, what we think this could do. I mean, Rob, you've mentioned wanting to get Champions League football, and potentially it's almost like making the sort of change that they would do if you were around the relegation zone and wanting to make sure you maintain your status. This is very much a similar sort of thing. They're languishing at the moment outside of the top. This is an opportunity for them to get back in. But after those 4 games against Chelsea, they've got a league game against Brighton, the FA Cup semi-final against Man Utd, and then Everton, Leicester, Man United and Palace to go through as well in the league. very winnable games. But as we say, if they don't manage to get past you guys in the WSL on the 23rd of March, it probably feels like it's a bridge too far for City. Even if Jesus Christ was in charge of the team, I'm not convinced that if they lose to you on the 23rd, that they'll be finding themselves in the top three. So do you foresee good things with this change with Nick Cushing being in charge until the end of the season?
I honestly don't know. I think that Cushing's did a really good job at City a few years ago, but we're talking now a long time ago, and the squad has changed, quite significantly. If Connor's tuning in tonight, I mean, don't worry, Connor, that reference gone over your head because you've probably never seen the film. But no, it's the I think it's probably it's a safe pair of hands appointment, isn't it? It's someone they've not gone for something controversial. He's despite people saying he's not going to be fan players won't like and stuff. He gets on well with some of the players there. He knows City very well. He's generally quite an affable sort of person. I can't see that being a problem. What I do think they might have an issue with is the fact that, if the gap does get bigger and then they end up, losing and they sort of drop more points. I mean, I haven't had a look at their run-in yet, but I know obviously they play us, a million times for the rest of, the month. But after that, I'm pretty sure I looked at it. There's games in here. There's some really tough, not fun games after that because they've got to go away to Brighton, and Brighton at home are very, very strong. They've then got the little manner of playing, you in an FA Cup semi-final. Then they've got Everton at home, which admittedly Everton are much better since Christmas, and I wouldn't count that as a banker. Leicester, you'd imagine they will win, although again they've improved since Christmas. Then they play United again. Palace on the final day. I mean, if they're dropping more points than that and they're seeing points tick over in there, that gap at the moment is 1 point. They're 1 point behind with Arsenal having a game in hand. If that goes to 4 points and then suddenly you look at that Brighton game, they don't get a result and it's up to 7 and things like that, the gap is just going to be so large that it's going to start affecting the players, and it's going to be a mental thing.
No, I agree, and Lucky, thank you for reminding me. I keep on trying to forget what those last 3 games are going to be like, because I very much put that as the gauntlet, like in Gladiator, Gladiators rather, not the film, Gladiator, where you just have 3 to get past, and there's always one that hits you just a little bit too hard and pushes you backwards. So just intrigued to see which one that's going to be. Freya, for you, do you feel this is going to be positive in any way, shape, form, or fashion for City? Because, I mean, in some ways, playing Chelsea 4 times helps you with your tactics to a degree, because you're going to be up against the same team. You'll know what Chelsea are going to do. It's highly unlikely they're going to change the way that they play too much for City. But if you play each other 4 times, you're going to know each other incredibly well, and you'll know what works and what doesn't. Do you think that actually could be part of the thinking, that it's not the end of the world if they go out of the Champions League? It's not the end of the world if they don't win the League Cup. If they can get something out of that game in the WSL, maybe it gives them the opportunity to build going into next season.
Yeah, I mean, I think what they'll be really looking at is, someone coming in, like Cushing coming in, is going to be a fresh set of eyes, isn't it? And it's going to be hopefully something that reinvigorates them. And, they're where City are, they should be doing better. Like they should. So maybe this is a change they needed. And now's the time, more than any, you said a bit like the gauntlet. Yeah, why not have a go? Like, they're not going to just turn up and go, nah, you're all right, have the 3 points. Like, they're going to keep fighting for it. So maybe, with someone else at the helm, it's going to be a lot easier if they can see where their goal is. Maybe they will try something new. I doubt it, but they might. But just to get through those games, because if you keep playing the same tactics over and over again, it'll then be easy for your opponents to figure you out. So it's not going to be easy. Of course, it's not. But maybe there is a bit of a silver lining, that it's just new, someone new coming in.
This is potentially comment of the evening. Son's going to play 4 different tactics. In fact, in the WSL game, she's going to field all 12-year-olds. Swear to God. She might well. They've got plenty of players to be able to do it, and let's be honest, they could probably get away with losing a game in the WSL without them.
Hang on, can I just pick up one of these points here? Michael says we've got 3 different starting 11s in our squad. I want to hear these 3. So you're saying we've got 33 fit players. Please name them, because unless you're counting some of our loanees, or people like Lola Brown, who no offense to her, but she's 16. She needs to be focusing on. She needs to be focusing at the moment on developing as a player, not playing in the Champions League. Like we've got a lot of players, but we have a lot of injuries as well at the minute. This is the other thing. People don't, I think, realise. Chelsea have a lot of depth, but there's so much injury in the squad and so much illness that actually the depth has been eroded. Yeah, we only have a couple of fit centre backs at the minute.
I feel like this is probably hyperbole, if I'm honest, Rob. But by all means, feel free to call these people out as and when you see it. The last bit about Gareth Taylor for you. Do you see it being a positive? Can you see it?
I think different players will react differently to it. I've definitely been in teams where a manager's gone and everyone's picked up. A new person comes in and everyone wants to impress. It's a good opportunity for those that weren't getting a look into the team to have a go. So it depends on the environment. It depends on the headspace of the players, I guess. But there's a good chance that it could be a positive, that a new manager or a new coach coming in means that there's a change from the players. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
Obviously, without mentioning it, have you ever been in a team where new managers come in and it's not really changed anything at all?
Yeah, I think it depends. Again, it's very much on the manager, the players, the environment, the way the club's working. I think, yeah, I've been in both environments, to be honest, and it's very dependent. So it is literally just a case of we'll see how the players react to it and see what the results are in the coming weeks.
Well, I think I can tell you what the next 4 are going to be, but we'll find out when we get there. So, let's actually now concentrate on what we were here for initially, which of course was the FA Cup, and what a weekend it was on International Women's Day / weekend, because obviously it all seems to carry over. It was rather wonderful, a very enjoyable weekend for me. I very much enjoyed all of the women's football that was available to us, and although it all kicked off on Saturday night, we're on City at the minute, so we might as well just finish with them before we consign them to the dustbin of the show. A 2-0 win over Aston Villa. Who better to tell us how that game went than our resident Sunderland fan, Freya? So talk to us a little bit about how you feel about getting absolutely mugged off by Manchester City just before they sacked their manager.
I mean, one day you won't take the mick about me as supporting all my teams, but there we go. No, I think, you know what? Fair play to the lasses, because last Championship club standing, they were the only losing team to score at the weekend as well. So we'll just put that in there. Everyone else, it was a slight victory, wasn't it? 1-0 in the other ones, but yeah, they did incredibly well. The goals that went in, could they have been avoided? Possibly. But unfortunately, United's had a bit of quality about them. But yeah, overall, but Sunderland didn't look like they were out of it at any point. As soon as Lou Griffiths got that goal back, he thought, actually, could we do something? But unfortunately, it wasn't to be. But I mean, what an experience to go out there, and the fans that travelled down were fantastic, and it was such an experience of. Sunderland's season hasn't been plain sailing. There's been some very high highs, very low lows. And just a culmination in getting this far was such an achievement. So, I mean, there are a couple of things like Leah Galton and Tash Fenton going against each other throughout the match. That was hilarious to watch. And you just, that was what was all about. 2 teams, proper going for it. But yeah, I'm just proud of them. I know they didn't win, but what a game to go out on.
Before I come to the other 2, again, if anybody wants to watch this in depth, you can always go to All United WFC. There's loads of chat about this. We're not going to hold on to it too long. But the first goal, I genuinely felt really bad for Sunderland, because Aoife Mannion blatantly kicks the ball out for a throw-in. The throw-in is given to Manchester United. and within 30 seconds, the ball has made it down to Bizet. It's in for Leah Gorton, and it's 1-0. I'm not a fan of winning in those sorts of circumstances. So in a way, I was quite pleased that Sunderland actually did make a bit of a tie of it, and that there was still some hope moving in towards the end. But losing a goal 7 minutes in when you've got a strategy, you're set up. What Sunderland showed was that defensively they were okay. They pretty much held on to United. There was a few chances, Mallard hitting the bar, Bizet shooting over, but generally limited United in their chances. Do you think that, I mean, I suppose I should be careful what I say here, but the incompetence of referees or the mistakes of referees, depending on which way you want to go around with that, has basically not cost Sunderland, but made it a little bit easier for United to make it through? Because if you don't make it 1-0 after 7 minutes, it could be 0-0 at half time, and it's a very different kettle of fish.
Well, that's the thing. It could be a completely different game, couldn't it? And I realised you did just ask me about City Villa. I do apologise. I went off on a Sunderland tangent.
You know what? I went with it, and nobody would have ever known had you just carried on. But now you put your hand up and admitted to it. And
hey, I also admit it. But yeah, I mean, you can sit and wonder about ifs and buts, can't you? But I think if it was a tighter game, and I think that decision clearly went against us, ending in a goal, but because the other two were quite clear cut and there wasn't any further chances for Sunderland, ultimately it might have changed the mentality a bit more in the game. Maybe you could have got another one back. But I think overall, United just had that bit more quality, didn't they? Annoyingly. But like I said, Sunderland, kept going. And that was Lou Griffiths' first goal for the club. And what a way to get it. So there you go. But yeah, I mean, reffing, we've had the conversation before, haven't we? It needs to level up across the board, across the field. And, hopefully once that education is there and that support is there, then we will get that better standard and we won't have these questions and we won't have these conversations anymore. But yeah, unfortunately.
I mean, it is fair to say that also the statue of Joan of Arc would have scored that goal because of the way in which May Letizia battered it against her legs. But honestly, a first goal was a first goal. And in all seriousness, it wasn't really an unexpected result, was it? Of all of the 4 games of the weekend, I think this one was probably the easiest one to call.
Yeah, I think you'd say that the team who were expected to win ended up winning. Obviously, a decision like that could have an impact, but I don't know. It's questionable whether that decision for the first goal would have had enough impact to completely change the result, but who knows?
No, I think that's fair. Joan of Arc, to be fair, would probably be a 30-goal-a-season striker. She'd be on fire. If you know your history, that was a bloody good thing. Rob, over to you. United against Sunderland. Anything you want to add on what's already been said?
I thought it was just a decent cup tie, to be honest. Again, credit to Sunderland, because actually, unlike, I think, some of the teams later on in this stage, if they conceded early on, would have completely folded and, would have gone in for a drubbing or just, tried to limit losses. I think that actually, it was just a really decent cup tie. Credit to United. They did what they needed to do. Obviously, on the balance of play, they probably be disappointed to not score more goals. But, 3-1 is fine. Nice to see Sunderland get a goal because, again, their effort, I think their endeavour deserved it. On the goal that, the first goal, yes, it's gone out of play. But I also do think, it's not as if it instantly comes from that. If it had been, say, a corner that's been given, I'd have a little bit more sympathy. But I'm going to, hold fire. There was plenty of chances, to chop down the player and give away a cynical yellow card, or more likely get away with it because of the way women's refereeing works. But yeah, no, generally just a decent cup tie and the sort of game that I just enjoy watching as a neutral.
No, I think it was thoroughly entertaining. Didn't necessarily have perhaps all the bells and whistles that some of the other games have had, but I do think it was quite enjoyable. What's this you put here? Probably won't be long until someone interviews an AI Joan of Arc asking about her stint as a striker for old PSG or something. I mean, that was a strange thing to happen. I will grant you on that. But do you know what? People come up with new ideas, and I think people just moan about a lot of things sometimes. There were probably better things they could have done on International Women's Day, I agree. But very interesting how people can try and make AI work to actually get the voice of someone from 100 years ago is quite quite something. And, let's be honest, they can't argue, can they? So, what's the chances of being sued? Pretty much zero, I would say. Right, we're going to try again, guys. So bear with me. Let's see if that works. So Freya, obviously Manchester City managed to defeat Aston Villa 2-0 at the lunchtime kickoff on the Sunday. Who better than somebody who is an Aston Villa fan as well as a reporter to talk to us a little bit about that game? Because 2 goals, a nice little win there. Bunny Shaw scoring again, Jess Park as well. First of all, how do you think Villa did? And again, probably not the most unexpected of results, but I thought if any game was going to have the potential to swing, this one potentially was the one.
Yeah, definitely. And I think whenever we go to City, it's usually a 2-1. So we were hoping for a goal to give back at some point. But it was done before. We did it, 2 seasons ago. I think it was March 23. We managed to win against City. So we kind of all held on to the hope that it can be done. Why can't we do it? Obviously, run of form hasn't been great. So it definitely wasn't. Definitely weren't the favourites to do it. But I think the fact that we managed to frustrate City in that first half, we were like, this is the Villa, right? Okay, they've stepped up a gear. But I think, a lot of the teams this weekend, they didn't have their best performances like throughout the games. And it just felt like no one really went up to that top gear. Like it all felt like they couldn't nothing was clicking. So the fact that we held them to 0-0 for half time, we thought, okay, maybe we can, edge it out a bit. Maybe there's going to be a last minute winner, maybe we can go to penalty. But yeah, there was definitely more hope, I think, for the first time in a while. But yeah, such good performance. And you just think we're usually so tight defensively. And we were up until a certain part. Because of course, Bunny Shaw gets a goal minutes after the restart. And you just think, okay, is this the battering? Is this where it comes in? But yeah, you can't. You just can't give goals away, and the second one just. No, it wasn't. It was Mary Taylor giving the ball away, wasn't it? And you just thought, if of all the people to do that to, do not do it to City. And yeah, City are a club that can take their chances, and they showed it. But as is just being said in the chat, Ebony Salmon, we made a prediction that if she was involved at some point, she was going to be dangerous. She's your typical cup striker. She comes alive whenever she comes on the pitch. And when she was starting, I thought, come on, what can she do? And you're right, I absolutely should have buried that chance. And again, talking about ifs and buts, maybe that would have set the game up completely differently if that chance had gone in. But yeah, it was really good. Definitely really, really good first half to be proud of. But even the second half, 2-0 isn't bad in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, it just wasn't our day. We don't have that edge this season, unfortunately, to get something off the line.
Absolutely. B, as Freya mentions there earlier on, Sunderland the only losing side to score a goal. Everybody else was to 0. But D'Angelo in goal for Villa was definitely the busier of the 2 goalkeepers, with 4 saves being made as well. So City were generally dominant in that game, which I think we probably would have expected. Really only 1 shot on target for Aston Villa. Do you think this was more a case of City asserting their dominance, or Aston Villa just not having quite what they needed going forward?
I think maybe a bit of both. I think City with Bunny Shaw and those types of players are quite a clinical team. Like they don't need loads of chances to get their goal, whereas Aston Villa's forwards maybe not quite the same as your Bunny Shaw, for example. But yeah, a bit of both. I thought Aston Villa did quite well for long spells in the game. I thought they did all right. A few slip ups, and like I said, Man City are quite a clinical side. So yeah, it was not bad from Aston Villa, but yeah, a bit of both.
Rob, I suppose I'd throw the same sort of question to you there. Beatrice mentioning that City are a bit more clinical. They had 12 shots, 6 of them on target, scored a third of the amounts that were on target. So, you know, I think you'd probably just put it out there as a routine win, really, wouldn't you?
Yeah, generally. I think it's cool, sort of, you're looking at it and, you know, I think if Villa had got the goal, it would have been interesting to see how City reacted from a mental point of view, because obviously they had the late equaliser. West Ham, I thought, were unlucky personally not to take the lead in that game as well. You know, Yamashita made some very, very good saves. I do think that after that, you know, once they got the goal, it was sort of business as usual, really. But interestingly, Michael saying about Bunny Church under new competent manager, scary thought. I actually think Bunny Shaw's probably one of the players that's going to be least affected by the managerial change in terms of getting better. Because I think she's going to be at the same level. I think, you know, if you're being critical about Gareth Taylor for stuff, there are things you can criticise him about, but I don't think Bunny Shaw's form, or indeed, you know, her performances are one of them. It's not as if you look at a striker who, you know, isn't performing and isn't scoring, sort of, you know, hasn't scored loads. I think it's 50 in the last 2 seasons. Like, yeah, there's plenty of things you can blame Taylor for, but that isn't one of them.
No, I think I would tend to agree with that one, Rob, and I'm going to stick with you because obviously the third of the 4 matches that took place over the weekend involved a side that you know incredibly well in terms of Chelsea up against Crystal Palace women. And I've got to be honest, my biggest surprise looking at this, I'm hands up, haven't seen these games really apart from a couple of highlights, so I can't offer huge in-depth analysis on it, but to be completely fair, Gan, that's why you're here. My job's just to knit it all together like a rather wonderful grandma. So the big thing that I'm really looking for you here is to try and explain to me how it is that the team at the top of the league has only beaten the team at the bottom of the league by 1 goal, when said team at the top of the league can batter the team who were 5th in the league by 6 goals at the end of last season. So what has happened there? How has it taken Lauren James 64 minutes for you to score a goal, having had 21 shots and only 5 of them on target?
Lack of clinical finishing. You know, on another day, Aggie Beaver-Jones has a hat-trick. On another day, Lauren James herself should have had a hat-trick. Her finishing was poor. There was one very bizarre offside goal against Macario where Erin Cuthbert was penalised for being on the floor, even though she may not have been offside, and the ball didn't even go near her, which is just, again, you can see that on my X account. I shared that yesterday, the timestamp for it. It's just odd. There was one that was a marginal offside in the first half that was a little bit unlucky. Just a lack of clinical edge. I actually thought generally Chelsea played quite well. I thought the performance was all right. I didn't think it was any issues with that. Had some good rotations, were able to rotate players, kept players fresh. Massively miss Sam Kerr at the moment. I think that's the biggest thing in the last couple of months we've really seen, is that Ramirez, brilliant player though she is, isn't a lone centre forward because she drifts wide and goes wide and wants to get involved and play too much, similar to Macario, wants to drift back, can't play as a centre forward. You need that Kerr sort of predatory poacher in the box. And there were 2 or 3 occasions at the weekend where you were sort of sat thinking, God, if Kerr was there, you know, she's gobbling that up. That's exactly in the area that the ball sort of falls to. We still can't take set pieces, but that's been an issue. Actually, that's a more general point. Everyone in the WSL ought to be ashamed this season that Chelsea have the most goals from set pieces this year. We are awful at them. We are truly diabolical. I've lost count of the number of times I've seen a corner hit the first player, or seen it just go over everyone's head and out for another, you know, for a goal kick. We are awful at them. We've got good players in the air. When they actually come near them, shock horror, they can do stuff with it. The problem is the corners go nowhere near them. And, like, again, I think we've scored something like 6 from the season. What is everyone else doing with their corners? How are you not scoring more? I think so 131, I think, this season, and we've scored 5 times from it. 2 of which came in the same bloody game. Like, it just, yeah. Generally, this has been you know, annoying me for a long time. I finally got it off my chest. But, no, yeah, I think it was one of those, you know, the 1-0 was a scoreline that very much flattered Palace. Palace, you know, came in, dug in, worked hard and sat down, did a good job. But I was a little bit disappointed by the match. The fact even when they were 1-0 down, they didn't try and go for the equaliser and just accept, okay, we could lose this 2-0, 3-0. They just sat in and played the exact same way and sort of were almost happy. It was a mental thing. 1-0 is a good scoreline, even though it was a cup game. And I can see that being the case in the league or whatever, but I don't think it's the case, in anything else. So, yeah, Katie Stengler's side, she had one chance where maybe got in, and Hampton did well to come off the line. They had a very late chance that was came up, and I think it was at the very last minute. It was a shot straight at Hampton. But other than that, they didn't really do anything. And I appreciate that. It's someone was there. Winning is all that really matters as a Chelsea fan for me now. Till the end of the season, we could win every single game for the rest of the year 1-0. All I care. Or in the Champions League, win one leg 1-0 and draw the next leg 0-0. I'm not here for entertainment. I'm here for the fact that getting to this stage, being unbeaten in all the competitions is absurd. I'll be quite honest. I didn't think we were going to get to this stage. I don't think we'll get to the end of March unbeaten. I've said this to a few people just by the law of averages. But at the end of the day, cup games are there to be won. I can't remember last year's quarterfinal. I can't remember, the year before's quarterfinal. But I can tell you for a fact, I can remember last year's semi-final for not winning it, and I remember the year before's final for winning it. They're the games that you actually do remember in this equation, not that last 16 tie or that quarterfinal tie that, you edge 1-0. That's not where the memories are made.
No, very true. It's absolutely not. And John pointed out something we went in depth on our sister channel, which was 2 players taking a corner. I forgot to mention that in our little chat. We had Gabby George and Ella Toon stood over a corner.
That can I just on corners, just as one final thing. When players take short corners, the one thing I would do, I would absolutely I would dock a player a week's wages for. And actually, Beatrice, I want to ask your opinion on this on corners. When players take a corner and they take it short and they end up passing it back to the halfway line or to the goalkeeper, if you're defending a 1-0 in the dying seconds, I can moderately maybe accept it. But when you're 0-0 and you're attacking, and a corner kick ends up at the goalkeeper, from your point of view, Beatrice, is there any benefit in that, or is it just teams do you sort of inside quietly die when a team does that?
I mean, I'm going to be honest, I don't know if I've ever seen a team do that. So I don't know. I don't understand the benefit to that. Taking a short corner would normally be to drag the player off the front post, would normally be the reason behind it, I feel. Or at least just shift the box around a bit more, just put the opposition under some pressure. But I don't know why you'd take a corner all the way back to the keeper. Are you
a short corner or in the box person? You more. What do you think is more effective?
It depends on what team you've got. I mean, our team's not got a very good attacking threat in the air this season. That's not really the style of players that we've got. So we've tried a few different things instead. I think it's completely dependent on the squads that you've got. And then I know in women's football compared to men's football, there's less desire of heading. That's just not so much the style of play. So I think short corners are probably a bigger thing in women's football than maybe men's.
There you go. But yes, it did take 2 players there. So that was quite something. Apparently, Rob, last year's quarterfinal was against Crystal Palace with the same.
Oh, yeah, Ramirez. Oh, yeah, Ramirez is back heel. Oh, yeah.
So with that in mind, I hope you're looking forward to losing your semi-final against Liverpool ever so marginally if the law of physics or whatever works itself through. Freya, we'll throw it back over to you for this Chelsea game. I mean, listen, there's a few people that have said the exact same thing as Rob finished off with, which is at this stage of the season, winning is all that matters, whether 1 or 5. And I mean, to be honest, that's kind of true, isn't it? They're involved in literally everything. They've got a League Cup final coming up. They're now in the FA Cup semi-finals. They're leading the charge in the WSL. And of course, still have these Champions League games to go. When you're in that sort of situation and you are fighting for what I believe to be an unprecedented quadruple, you don't tend to worry too much about whether it's 5, 6, 7-0. You just worry about the fact that you won.
Yeah, be nice if Chelsea could share, wouldn't it? And just let someone else have a go. But that's a different story. No, you're right. And at the end of the day, it's the goals get you points, and it's the wins that will get you to that next stage at the end of the day. And it doesn't have to be perfectly beautiful football the whole time. If it gets over the line, it gets over the line, and that's literally it. And when you're up against, teams like your Palace, like your Villa, who sometimes can then struggle out of possession, and they don't have these chances on goal. If you're a team like Chelsea, who you've got so many attacking threats, someone is going to get that ball over the line, and that's literally it. So yeah, they get it done, and that's why they're champions, isn't it?
I mean, it certainly is. B, a similar sort of question really to you with regards to this game, but what I will say is Rob mentions missing Sam Kerr, and it's very interesting. You had Aggie Beaver-Jones, who was obviously leading the line for them. The goal, of course, comes from Lauren James, though. So how much really do you rate Lauren James as a player? Because I feel like Chelsea have had to maybe lean on is a bit of a stretch, but they've certainly relied on Lauren James stepping up during the absence of Sam Kerr since her ACL.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lauren James is a really, really good player. As an Arsenal fan, don't love her, of course, but I think she's a good technical player. Yeah, and I think she's still quite young, and she has stepped up well for Chelsea during Sam Kerr's absence. She's done well, but I think for me, she's one of those players that potentially a bit wild on the pitch. You don't know like how she's going to react to certain things, and potentially a player that might be a bit of a card risk, yellow card, red card, that type of thing, which can be difficult to manage. But no, I think she's done well in Sam Kerr's absence.
No, absolutely. Shane there mentioning that without Lauren James, we don't beat Spain the other week. And wow, that's a shout. Probably the English player most likely to win the Ballon d'Or in the future. Well, who knows? It might well be the case. You're completely right, and that's exactly where we're going. Well done, you. You've worked out how I roll the game. She's like, I see what's coming here, Barry. Let me throw it out there. And she saw exactly what I did to Rob, and I've done it the way back there. Fair play. I've rumbled indeed. That's exactly where we're going. And it was, honestly, I did get the feeling all four teams, and when I say the four, obviously I'm talking about the big four: City, United, Arsenal, Chelsea. All of them, the fact that they'd missed playing each other in the quarterfinals, it just felt destined to have the top four playing each other in the semi-finals. But you knew that somewhere there was going to be a side that just spoilt the party. And I've got to be honest, I was gobsmacked, really, that it was Arsenal. But if Sean was here, he would have mentioned Liverpool have really sort of come into their own a little bit over the last few games, and have certainly shown a much better bone spirit within the last few months than they have at the beginning. Let's not forget they finished fourth last season. A bit of a shame that it was an own goal. That's always one of those. Again, I've not seen much of it, but really not very nice pictures for Daphne Van Domsela for the own goal. I see other people saying that it's not really her fault. There was other players that were involved. Either way, it's a little bit of a freak goal, and it hasn't quite worked out for you. But either way, Arsenal didn't deserve to win in terms of the stats. They've only had 6 shots, 1 on target. Liverpool had 7 and 3 on target. More possession for Arsenal. No clear-cut chances across the entirety of the game, which kind of explains why we've got own goals separating the two sides. But, I mean, listen, you watch Arsenal women quite regularly. Talk to us a little bit about how you think this has happened, because honestly, going through Twitter a little bit, Arsenal fans at the moment seem to be throwing a little bit of a pity party, feeling a bit disappointed, probably because that's their chance of silverware this season really gone. Although, granted, Champions League is still, I believe, there and thereabouts.
Yeah, I mean, it was disappointing result. I didn't actually get to watch the game because I was out playing football. But when I saw the result, not what I needed yesterday. But I don't know. I feel like you're right. Arsenal probably didn't deserve the win. I don't know if Liverpool played that much better. I feel like our keeper had a bit of a poor performance, and I do feel for her. She gave away a couple of their good chances. She gave the ball to the opposition in the box, so she's probably waking up this morning or has had a pretty rough day after that. But yeah, I don't know, just a frustrating game. I only got to watch a couple of the highlights, so I don't really have too much to say on the performance. But yeah, not a good sign for Arsenal.
Not going to lie, B, that is an incredibly Arsene Wenger style answer that's coming there. I can't answer the question. I didn't see it. Unbelievable. That was incredible.
I don't know what you want me to say. I didn't watch the game. I was playing football.
I don't want you to say anything, really. I just wanted to just dig the knife in just ever so slightly more. And I've done that well, and I'm going to retreat from that particular attack just now, much like the Arsenal attack. Freya, we'll throw it back over to you. All right, there was a little one there, Rob. I'm sorry. Sometimes I just can't help myself. Freya, Arsenal losing to Liverpool. Was it a surprise for you? Because it was when I read it, but then when I started to think about it and deep it a bit more, actually wasn't that much of a surprise. And I said that Villa potentially beating City was the banana skin that I thought we might have seen. But actually, Liverpool turning up against Arsenal was probably, in hindsight, the place where there was most likely to be a result that was unexpected.
Yeah, and I think Liverpool did well to adjust to the conditions. They managed to, figure Arsenal out pretty early on, and they made it really hard for them. And like we were saying about the other games, even if you were a neutral, it was so good to see just a genuine matchup. Like Liverpool were frustrating Arsenal just couldn't get into gear, like we mentioned earlier, and just seeing chance after chance just go amiss and no one could really get it in. So it was either going to be a moment of magic or a mistake. And unfortunately, Daphne was just in the wrong place as she's come out to defend the goal. And it was that was literally it that separated it. But if you think of Liverpool have got Roman Haug back, Murray Hobbinger's back from injury, they've got some really good names in that squad. So the fact that they put up that performance and were able to get something from it, I'm over the moon for them that they've managed to get in, because at one point it was predictable that the same four were going to get through. And so the fact that Liverpool have done it, I'm really happy about it. But like people are saying in the chat, Olivia Smith, just what a talent she is. And Kate McCabe genuinely thought she was going to get a red card at one point because she was getting so frustrated at not being able to do anything. So yeah, it was just fantastic to see a new face in the mix. Because it's been quite a while, I believe, since Liverpool have been at this point. So yeah, really, they deserved it in the end.
Katie McCabe looking like she might get a red card. That is a statement that I probably would be on my bingo card, if I'm honest. Rob, I mean, for you, anything you'd like to add on the whole Arsenal-Liverpool bit? But then once we've got through that, carry on by talking to us a little bit about looking ahead to the semi-final, because obviously Liverpool are the side that will have to face Chelsea. My question to you on that side of things, once you've spoken about whatever you want to say for the Arsenal-Liverpool game, is if this Liverpool side turns up and plays in the manner they did against Arsenal, and Chelsea turn up and play in the way that they did against Crystal Palace, do you see a world where Liverpool could be in the FA Cup final?
On that point, of course, like at the end of the day, if Chelsea don't play well and Liverpool play well, then as every team in the WSL, I think nowadays has a chance of beating each other and has a chance of it. And obviously, by that point, Chelsea's squad is going to be tested to the limit if they get through in the Champions League. I believe the next round of that is bookended with Champions League games. They've already got a very, very tight sort of schedule and a tight sort of turnaround at that point. I do think that from like what I've seen of yesterday's game, Liverpool, the managerial change has definitely helped them, because Matt Beard, I think, good manager, Matt Beard, but I do think that he maybe isn't the sort of manager to get the most out of some of the attacking talent that they have, I think is a fair way to describe it. I don't necessarily think he's someone who is willing to maybe give Olivia Smith the sort of freedom and the sort of extra sort of impetus that she sort of needs in the midfield. I don't think he's someone who is maybe going to allow Herbinger to be as sort of dynamic as she can be in that midfield and sort of dominate. So I do think that it's sort of it's been a good time. I also think Emma Whiteley, she's clearly very well liked, and I think it probably helped them, from a mood point of view, because obviously the mood had gone a little bit flat. I think under Matt Beard, certainly internally, obviously people were surprised at it, but less players were surprised. And I do think that they probably on the balance of it deserved it. I do think Van Domselaar, who's had a very good first season at Arsenal, had a poor game. It happens as a goalkeeper. I think one thing I've noticed about Van Domselaar, and it's sort of been the case of that when she starts poorly and makes an early mistake, her confidence is really affected. It's similar to Hannah Hampton. Hannah Hampton is similar in that if she gets the first bit wrong, she's often making mistakes, kicking balls out of play. There were a couple of times where Roman Hogg nearly caught up to touches, and one of them where Roman Hogg probably should have put it in and punished the loose touch, but obviously a little bit unlucky on the goal. I think what's really surprising is that even after the Liverpool squad, Arsenal didn't really create a lot. They didn't really, you're almost expecting that onslaught, and you were expecting them to, sort of, throw the juggernaut, throw the kitchen sink at it, but they didn't really do that. And it kind of felt like they were a little bit sort of shell-shocked that Liverpool had sort of took the lead. But generally, I think they do deserve it. And I think it's good to see different teams in the sort of semi-final. I think Liverpool pose a different kind of test to the test Chelsea have had so far, in that I think they are a team that will come, and they themselves will fancy getting to that final. This is a thing. Chelsea will need to be up for it on the day. I think the fact it's at home does help Chelsea, because they've got a very strong record at Kings Meadow. But equally, Liverpool will point to the fact that earlier in the season they played Chelsea and didn't show their best in any way, shape, or form. So they'll have that motivation to do better.
No, absolutely. B, I'll throw this over to you because Emily's put that there'll potentially be more pressure on Chelsea than Liverpool. They'll be tired. It's still a big challenge, but could win if they turn up and play their game. And she feels something special is in the works. I'll tell you now, she is suggesting it's going to be a Liverpool versus Manchester United final. So that is something we've heard her say. But just kind of the same question to you really here. Can you see a world where Liverpool do end up in the FA Cup final? Because she's right about the being tired. They've got the 4 games, obviously, against Manchester City, the 15th, the 19th, the 23rd and the 27th. Then they've got WSL weekend on the 30th as well. And then, of course, they end up in the FA Cup semi-final. So there would have been a lot there. I know that Chelsea does have, for the most part, an embarrassment of riches across their squad, with the exception at the moment of centre-back. Could that be the issue? If they don't have huge numbers of centre-backs and the ability to rotate and rest there, could there be a potential that a tired defence is making a mistake or two more, and that is what brings Liverpool to the final? Or do you expect to see Chelsea dominate as usual?
I mean, I think that kind of scenario where Chelsea have a lot of games back to back and tired players, I think that's really where we get to see whether Chelsea are a champion quadruple winning team. If they can do it in that situation, that really shows that they are capable of a lot. So I think it's going to be a really telling moment for them in their season. I do feel like they are probably still the favourites. I think Liverpool will be happy to see that they've got so many games in such a short space of time before that semi-final, but I do still feel like Chelsea probably are the favourites going into it. But I mean, I think it will be a good game, and it would be amazing if we saw a complete upset at that point and Liverpool gets the final. I think that would just be good all round for women's football.
Are you one of those fans who, if you get knocked out of a competition, wants to see the team that knocked you out win?
I mean, as a player, for sure. I don't know about as a fan. I don't know. I think just generally to have someone different slightly out of the top 4 in an FA Cup final is amazing.
it would be something. Absolutely. Freya, same thing really to you. It's going to be a tricky one for them with a big run going on. B mentioned that Liverpool would be the underdogs. Do you think that is also another thing that suits them because they know that there's no pressure? That really does free them up. As I said about the City game against Chelsea, it's a free hit. So they can just go out there, enjoy themselves, enjoy the semi-final, and with a little bit of luck and a decent defensive position, a decent defensive performance, they could potentially end up in the final, especially if it ends up going to, say, extra time and penalties. It's a lottery at that point.
Yeah, and I think, in the grand scheme of things, if any team does have a squad to deal with all those matches, it is Chelsea. I know we're talking about injuries, but on the whole, the majority of that depth, can see them through. But yeah, Liverpool would be looking at it thinking, well, like you said, it's a free shot. You might as well. Like, you're going to go out anyway, whether it's 10-0, 1-0, whenever it is. So you might as well just go all out. You'll have probably not as tired players, hopefully. So yeah, why wouldn't they give it their best shot? And I think at this point you've got to believe, you've got to hope. Like people in the chat are saying, Emily's enthusiasm, like you need to have that as a fan, as a club, because it's if you go down that tunnel thinking, oh well, we're not going to win, then you won't, because you don't have that mentality to fight for it. So yeah, I really hope, for the sake of keeping things fresh, that Liverpool maybe do get through. But yeah, odds are always on Chelsea, aren't they? Again, getting through.
At the moment, certainly this season, they are the team to beat, and whoever is the first team to beat them are going to certainly see that as a massive scalp, if indeed a side does. Freya, we'll just stick with you on this one as well, because obviously the other semi-final is just a small matter of a Manchester derby.
Yes.
Just like, City 4 is the magic number for City, because they played Chelsea. Well, they played them 5 times actually. They played them 4 times in this little run. They'll have played Manchester United 4 times as well, what with having knocked United out of the League Cup to make the League Cup final. But you can't look past that 4-2 win for United away from home in the WSL. So all to play for there in terms of that game. Where do you see that one going? Again, potential tiredness for City, having played a lot of games in a short amount of time. United will have only played maybe 2, having played each Sunday. Friday, obviously, against Liverpool this week. What do you reckon about that one? Who is going to be joining either Chelsea or Liverpool in the final?
And that's another Manchester derby, isn't it? I think if we hadn't have had the scorelines we've seen this season of the 4-2 and just it kind of been a bit all over the shop and a bit unpredictable, I think United are getting the job done. It's, no offense, Barry, it's been not the most exciting football that they've been playing recently, but they've been getting their goals over the line. They've been getting the points. So I think if City, well, they will be tired, won't they? But yeah, United have got as much of a good chance as any. And what a way to get back into the final again.
No, absolutely. B, we'll throw it over to you as well. Same question, but there's people here, Kucha Criminal, saying Chelsea. Oh, hang on, there we go. Chelsea versus United Part 2. It kind of feels like Part 3. Let's not forget that 2 years ago, Chelsea beat Manchester United in the FA Cup final when Leah Galton thought she had put Manchester United ahead in the craziest early 60 seconds of an FA Cup final that there's ever been, before Manchester United were firmly put back into their box by Chelsea. But United had the last laugh, coming back the next season, obviously beating Chelsea with a little bit of a stunner, really. Quite a good performance in the semi-final. Do you see it being Manchester United against Chelsea again, potentially, this season?
I think maybe. I think a lot of factors have to happen for that to be the final. Yeah, I think there's a possibility. I don't know, if I'm being honest. I don't know. Sorry.
There we go. B's pleading the fifth at the moment. That's kind of it for her. So we've obviously broken her spirit with all the conversation about Arsenal. Bless her. But Rob, I'll throw it straight back over to you. You know, it's very interesting. There's been a lot of talk all throughout the show that we did on WFC and also in this channel, even in the chat as well. People say Man United run around like headless chickens. Freya is right to say that it's not necessarily been the most exciting football. It hasn't. There's been chances made, but not necessarily even close to being taken. Not as many chances as we would have liked, I don't think. So there's a lot to be said about that. But I think the conversation that seems to be happening at the moment is everybody just wants Mark Skinner out. You know, the vocal people that we're seeing on channels is Mark Skinner out. I mean, if it happened, I don't think I'd be sat there, you know, with tears streaming down my face and requiring a handkerchief. But this is the team that's second in the league at the moment. The team that is most likely, if anyone is, to give Chelsea a run for their money is us. And in the nicest possible way, they've just made, you know, a League Cup semi-final and an FA Cup semi-final. The chances of that happening is very slim. Freya talks about Emily being full of enthusiasm, but actually, isn't that what we should all be right now? This is an opportunity in a Manchester derby to make it to Wembley once again, but yet still the headlines across a lot of Manchester United fans is get rid of Mark Skinner. Do you think that that's a little bit OTT, perhaps? And where do you see United in this one? Do you see it being a United final or a City final?
I mean, I'm just sad there's no respect to the longest-serving WSL manager. You know, loyalty is dead these days, and just absolutely zero respect to a man that's given you such a long time. No, I mean, you know my thoughts on Skinner. I'm not, that we've had enough conversations on it. I think this channel, the sister channel, has devoted enough time to Mark Skinner that you could probably rival sort of 10 lots of the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy to discussion about Mark Skinner. But I think, to be honest, I wouldn't like to call it. In all honesty, I think City were in that game. They were poor defensively, but at the same time, they could very easily have been 3-3 at a point in that before it was 4-2. I do think that, City will be keen to get one over on United, if nothing else. I think that result will have hurt earlier in the season. By that point, they might have certain players back. Lauren Hemp might be back to sort of full fitness. You obviously, got the Nick Cushing factor. I don't actually think Nick Cushing. I don't think United actually have ever faced a Nick Cushing Manchester City, because I think it would have been before you were in the WSL, so there's that factor of it. I wouldn't like to predict it. Either side, I'm very much being simply be interested. I'm very much sitting on the fence. Either side could win it. My money mainly would go on City, purely due to the fact I think they've got more game changers in a tight match. And I think if you're talking about a tight game, I think the likes of, Caroline, even though we haven't necessarily seen it so far, Lauren Hemp, Bunny Shaw, Viviana Miedemeier, at the moment look more likely to be able to, decide a tight match. Whereas United are very, very good from a defensive point of view, but I don't think they've quite got that, that wow factor player that you're looking at and saying, maybe Bizet, if, she's on sort of form, Turlin capable of sort of doing it, Galton, Toon, Toon probably the one you're most likely looking at, but there's not really the sort of names that roll off the tongue when it comes to sort of City.
No, I tend to find that difficult to disagree with. Yeah, Kucha Criminal, big fan of how he's getting on. Michael makes a reasonable point. Biggest defenders of Mark Skinner are generally fans of other clubs. But, I mean, I do wonder. I just, listen, he's not my favourite person. It's certainly over the course of the last year, he has managed to change my opinion on him quite a bit. But if you were to ask me now, should he be sacked? I can't sit here and say yes, because, again, they're the second highest team in the league at the moment, and they're doing incredibly well. And for all the negativity that seems to come into the game around him and the way in which he allegedly treats certain players and all that sort of thing, like, it's not showing, is it? Because the teams that he's putting out there are doing incredibly well. It was only last season that was not quite as good as it could have been. Were you going to jump in there, Rob?
At the risk of getting into Skinner chat, which is something I've tabooed myself on this channel, like, I don't really understand who anyone is looking at. Like, people say we can upgrade and we can get someone better in and whatever, but I don't really see, if there was a really obvious choice, someone could tell me and say this is they're going to be better. I think fantastic player, but again, not the sort of player you're looking at who's going to unlock a tight defense. Might well keep you in a game, and that might be the other side of it. Keep you in a game and nick a goal, but isn't going to unlock a packed defence. But I do think that, if there was a really obvious choice, say Serena Wiegman was available, and you were saying, get Serena Wiegman in, no doubt she'd do better than Mark Skinner. I think Serena Wiegman's or, if by some horrendous alternative parallel universe, Emma Hayes decided she wanted to go to Manchester United, would do better than Mark Skinner. Confident. But it's not going to happen. And like everyone says to me these hypothetical names and says, oh, X will do better, Y will do better. I don't really see the sort of argument of it. Like, if there was a real clear step up, and I'd be curious to know, actually, if any United fans do want to throw names out there of who they think is going to sort of, be this coach that's suddenly going to elevate this current squad to a new level, then I'd be keen to sort of hear it.
No, absolutely. And I mean, listen, Gareth Taylor's free. Be interesting to see if people were that pleased to get rid of Mark Skinner. Would you be happy taking on Super Gareth Taylor? Who knows? That's it. You can't really argue.
If you had to choose between Taylor or Matt Beard to take over, who would you pick, Barry, and why?
That's a question and a half, that one. I would probably go with Gareth Taylor, purely because Matt Beard seems to be slightly more defensive. So I don't know if he would be able to sort of maintain the attacking ethos that Manchester United has been built on over the years. So I think purely based on footballing reasons, that's where I'd have to go if I went for that one. But if it was for Chelsea, who would you choose?
See, I'd probably actually go for Matt Beard because he's better at knowing how to win. He's the sort of manager, he's more of a pragmatist, and I think he's more of a pragmatist, and that's a good thing. But I'm sort of unusual in that I wouldn't mind winning every game 1-0 if it meant you won the league.
Fair enough. I think we can all agree that the best manager would probably be the statue of Joan of Arc. And that is who I would like to bring in to the dugout. So we're going to replace them with anyone. Let's go with that. I think that's pretty much it. I feel like there was something sat there in the back of my mind that I wanted to mention, but it's disappeared. So there's not a huge amount I can say. This is a good point. People forget Beardy's won the WSL. Love to see him in charge of a team that would invest. And to be fair, the investment would indeed be something that would be helpful. But some might argue that that's definitely not Manchester United. So there we go. Listen, I take the mickey out of everyone. Poor old Beatrice here has had a hell of a weekend. She's seen her club go out of the FA Cup. She's not had the greatest of weekends at all. And you didn't see me take any prisoners there either. So I'm ever so sorry, mate. That's just what's the word that people use when they want to try and get out of trouble? It's banter, isn't it? It's banter. So there we go. I think that's about it. I don't think there was any other questions. Anyone else got anything that they feel like they need to oh, there was something. I knew there was, and it was the starred one. There it is. It was this. Well done, Barry. My memory hasn't entirely gone yet. Emily, of course, mentioned the weekend and the fact that it was International Women's Day weekend. Which is a bit of a misnomer in itself, but I get what you mean. Absolutely. It was International Women's Day on Saturday. Lots going on. And I just kind of wanted to ask, with it being Women's Football Channel, just you two, really. Because, listen, you find the same sort of absolute Neanderthals that like to jump onto women's football chats, giving it the old, oh, well, when's International Men's Day? They don't have one of them, do they? They do. You just couldn't be bothered to Google it, mate, is generally the gist of it. But what's the relevance of International Women's Day for you guys, both as a football player and as a football supporter and someone who just loves the game? How important do you think International Women's Day is? And the reason why I bring this up is because I've been talking to a few people around the game. It's very interesting, especially within footballing terms, because some clubs, men's clubs, things like that, will almost treat this day as a bit of a nod to the women. But then it's just that, a bit like Mother's Day. You have one day where you say thank you to your mum, and the other 364, you just incredibly, that's what you're supposed to do. You're my mum, sort of thing. But on Mother's Day, I'll make you some, beans on toast or whatever. Well done. Where do you sort of stand on International Women's Day? Is it an important thing? Is enough being done on International Women's Day? Is it too much? Do they perhaps need to draw back on it? What do you reckon? So fight amongst yourselves, girls, as to who goes first.
I think it's an important day. I think it's really important to shine a light on women generally, but also the women's game. I don't feel like enough is being done, but I do also see people's arguments of like it should be the whole year round rather than just one day. But yeah, I found this weekend and International Women's Day just really inspirational, really inspiring, really wholesome. I thought it's been a really, really nice weekend. Really enjoyed it.
I'm gonna talk about some of the negativity actually, because it showed more than ever why we need it this weekend. I'm sure everyone's heard in the news about some fans' comments put towards Taylor Hines and actually towards Gabby Nunes as well in the City Villa game. And if anything, it shows that we are taking a stand and we're not going to, be pushed aside and we're not going to be silenced. And yes, it should be all round. Yes, all clubs, every organisation, everyone needs to, stand up and fight for each other, not just for other women, but for anyone who is from any kind of minority background. And just to really stand up for each other and come together as a community. And that's what the football community can do very well. And yeah, there's just some horrible people about who maybe they've heard it from the men's game, which, isn't great, but unfortunately it is so much in the men's games culture, isn't it? That you get these idiots. And, if they think that's acceptable, then they need to think again, and you will be reported, and hopefully the club will give them a lifetime ban and never let them back near a pitch again, because you are not welcome in our game. So yeah, there's luckily the people in question have been reported to the club, and hopefully they'll follow up with it. But yeah, it just showed more than ever why we need days like this to really celebrate it, get the men's teams involved as well, get all of these organizations, because it needs to change, because there are some people who think, oh, let's say what I want on the internet, I can do it in real life as well, and they need to realize that they can't.
I think there's a better way to end the show than that, to be honest with you, Freya. You absolutely nailed it. It almost makes me feel bad that I do need to just add something, just because there's been a message that I feel we need to do, but that would have been the perfect ending point. We're not going to be talking about Jays across any of the all four channels at the moment. The men's channel, because it's the men's channel, why would you do that? But certainly on WFC or indeed on WOFO, because it's far too emotive a conversation at the moment. In between all of this, with regards to how Jays may or may not have been treated at Manchester United and whether or not it was right or wrong to put a player on loan, is a lady who lost her brother and is still grieving. And I think there's mental health things to be put in there, and we don't need to be adding to the discourse that's going there. So I'm sure as and when the loan move becomes factual, if that does indeed happen, then we'll talk about it. And if not, then we will just consign that to the lost and found for now. And we'll come back to it at a later date. Brilliant, guys. Well done, everybody. It's been a superb evening. I've really enjoyed it. The FA Cup has reached the semi-finals. And although one big gun, ironically, the Gunners, has dropped out, there are 3 big guns still left in. And one little minnow, who, ironically, have got a men's team, are likely to win the men's championship, the Premier League. Is there any chance that their women could go off and win the FA Cup? They couldn't, could they? Guess we'll find out. See you next time.